إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كلام الله، وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل ضلالة في النار. عباد الله, O servants of Allah, Allah Azza wa Jalla says in the Quran, وَلْتَكُنْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَأُولَئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ اخْتَلَفُوا مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَتْهُمُ الْبَيِّنَاتُ وَأُولَئِكَ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, and let there be from amongst a group or a nation that calls to that which is good and commands that which is right and forbids that which is evil, and it is these who will be successful. And do not be as those who disagreed after clear signs came to them, for these it will be a severe punishment. So in this ayah is from the usul of Islam, from the great fundamentals of Islam, that it's necessary that every Muslim والمسلمة يعمل بمقتضاها, act according to what it necessitates, that they call to this good, that they call to the good of Tawheed, al-imanu billah, ta'atillah, belief in Allah, obedience to Allah, imanun bi rusuli, iman in His messenger, and the following of His sunnah, that they call to this good, and that they command that what is right, and that they forbid that which is evil. And if they do so, then it is these individuals who will be successful in this dunya and in the life to come. As we see that Allah Azza wa Jalla made that success contingent upon these qualities. So He said it is these, i.e. these who have these qualities, who will be successful. This meaning is found in many of ayat in the Quran. This meaning is found in many of the ayat in the Quran. So Allah Azza wa Jalla said, clarifying the reason why the nations and the cities and the villages are saved from destruction. What keeps them safe from being destroyed? Allah Azza wa Jalla said, وَمَا كَانَ رَبُّكَ لِيُهْلِكَ الْقُرَىٰ وَأَهْلُهَا مُصْلِحُونَ. And your Lord wouldn't destroy the villages while its people were rectifying and making things right. So this Islah, this rectification, is from the things that keep us safe from the destruction of Allah. This is what keeps us safe from our enemies beating us. This is what keeps us safe from going backwards or being backwards. So how strange is it that we hear from people nowadays that they complain and they accuse those who command the good and forbid the evil by saying that they're the reason why the nation isn't successful. They say that they're the reason why the people are separated. They say that they're the reason why the enemies of Islam have been able to take advantage of the Muslims. And indeed, O servants of Allah, this is not the case. Instead, it is those who command to the good and forbid the evil who keep the ummah together. and who keep the ummah safe from Allah's punishment. And indeed, this affair of commanding the good and forbidding the evil has reached such an extent that it is the reason why this nation is better than all of the other nations that came before it. So here's Ahlul Kitab, and some of us, may Allah keep us safe, want to be like them in their worldly life and perhaps even in their religion. But this is Ahlul Kitab. Allah said about them, كانوا لا يتناهون عن المنكر فعلوا لبئس ما كانوا يفعلون. They used to not forbid evil that they used to do. How evil is that which they did? So Allah says that about them, how evil they are. But then Allah Azza wa Jalla also says about this nation, كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وَتَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ. You are the best nation brought forth from mankind. You command that which is good, and you forbid that which is evil, and you have iman in Allah. So there's no shak, there's no doubt that this commanding the good and forbidding the evil is from the most incumbent of obligations upon this nation. So none of you should be misled. None of you should be misled by those people of innovation and those people of desire when they say that this talking about Tawheed, this calling to the good of Tawheed separates the people. None of you should be misled when they say that this commandment of the good and forbidding the evil keeps people away or makes us weak. For indeed, this is the reason why we're strong. And indeed, this is the reason why we're successful. And indeed, it is these individuals who call to the good and forbid the evil, who keep this nation upon one call and keep this nation upon one way. And for that reason, Allah Azza wa Jalla, He said in that ayah that we just read shortly ago, let there be from amongst you a group that calls to the good and command that which is right and forbids that which is evil. Showing how it is these individuals who keep us together and who keep us unified. He said about what would happen if we don't do so. So he said, وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ اخْتَلَفُوا مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَتْهُمُ الْبَيِّنَاتِ وَأُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. And he said, and don't be like those who disagreed, who lost their unity after clear signs came to them. So it is this calling to the good and forbidding the evil that keeps us away from disagreement. It keeps us away from separation, as we've been commanded to hold fast to the rope of Allah together. So there's no concern given to these statements made by these people, that those who command the good and forbid the evil are separating the nation. Instead, this commanding the good and forbidding of the evil is from the khasa'is of hadhihi al-ummah. It's from the unique qualities of this ummah. They say, or should I say, that no one abandons commanding the good or forbidding the evil except the individual who has hypocrisy that is clear. And how can that not be the case when no one is happy with this evil being done except one who is pleased that these affairs enter upon the Muslims, that they are allowed to mislead the Muslims, and so the Muslims will end up being upon other than that which the previous generations were upon. So it's necessary to command the good and forbid the evil. And perhaps you find it strange that I say that the one who doesn't command the good or forbid the evil, that even if he claims Iman, then he is deficient and perhaps a hypocrite. Then know that I have not said anything other than that which the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said. For indeed it is coming in authentic hadith, recorded by Muslim, and Abi Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu anhu, that he said, من رأى منكم منكرا فليغيره بيده فإن لم يستطع فبلسان فإن لم يستطع فبقلبه وذلك أضعف الإيمان. وفي رواية قال ليس وراء ذلك من الإيمان حبة خردل. Abu Sa'id radiallahu anhu, he said that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, whoever sees evil amongst you, then let him change it with his hand. And if he is unable to do so, then let him change it with his tongue. And if he is unable to do so, then let him change it with his heart. And that is the least level of Iman. And in the narration he said, and there is nothing after that from Iman, not even a mustard grain worth. So we see here that commanding the good and forbidding the evil and changing that which is disapproved of is necessary. And that those who don't do it, they lack in Iman. And it becomes clear when we understand that this is because it's necessary that at least we hate it in our heart. And if we don't hate it in our heart, if we don't disapprove of it, then where is our Iman? If we don't disapprove of the shirk that's happening, and we don't raise any attention, we don't disapprove of innovation, instead we call everybody to come on as you are. We don't disapprove of sins that are done amongst us, then where is our Iman? لَيْسَ وَرَاءَ ذَلِكَ حَبَّةٌ مِنَ الْإِيمَانِ حَبَّةُ خَرْدَلٍ. There's nothing behind that from Iman. So it's necessary that we concern ourselves with these affairs and that we learn them. For indeed this is the way of the Prophet and the prophets of old. So our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah said about him, لَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ أَنْ لَا يَكُونُوا مُؤْمِنِينَ. Maybe you would kill yourself that they're not Muslims out of concern over them. You're going to kill yourself out of worry over them that they would become from the people of Iman. This is the concern that he had. Was he quiet when he saw people disobeying Allah? Was he negligent when he saw people disobeying Allah? La! He would call and he would stand firm to that call. And indeed in the hadith of Jarir ibn Abdullah al-Bajali, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Man yurihuni min dhil khalasa." Who will relieve me from Dhil Khalasa? Dhil Khalasa was a place where they used to commit shirk in Yemen. The Prophet, he said, who will relieve me? This shows us that it was from that which would relax him, and from that which he was worried about was the people committing shirk. But nowadays, you find from the people those who don't care about. And all they care about is this claim of theirs. This claim of theirs that the nation needs to progress, that we need to come together in spite of our differences. There is no coming together upon differences. Instead, we need to come together upon that which we've been commanded to come together upon, the Book of Allah and His Sunnah. So I implore you, O servants of Allah, to command to the good and forbid the evil, and to call to this good, and know that when you do so, you'll be successful. And you'll save yourself and your communities from the punishment of Allah. And you'll bring about the good that Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned about you when you carry out these commandments. أقول ما تسمعون وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المؤمنين من كل ذنب فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على النبي الذي اصطفاه محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه. O servants of Allah, we understand that commanding the good, forbidding the evil is from the obligations upon this nation. It's something that we must do, and it's something that we must accept when it is given to us. Then we say, as we say all the time, every act of worship requires knowledge and understanding before doing so. So it's necessary that we understand how to call to the good and how to forbid the evil and disapprove of it. Because this is worship. And no worship is accepted until we have knowledge on how to carry it out. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Man ra'a minkum munkara." Whoever from amongst you sees evil. This statement we get a benefit, O servant of Allah. And it is a statement that whoever sees it, that this disapproving and this inkar is done when we see actions being carried out in front of us, or when we hear them being carried out around us. And for that reason, the scholars, they say that it is not suitable that we spy or we seek out or we wait for the people to make their mistakes. Instead, when we see it, we forbid it. And if we don't, then there's no room for us to do so. So by this we understand the mistake of those individuals who wait for the people to make mistakes. They climb the walls of the houses. They look into the windows. They wait for you to slip up so they can criticize you. And how often is this the case? How often is this the case with those individuals who were previously rejected and previously disapproved of? They wait for those who call them to the good and forbade them from the evil to make any mistake. And once they make their mistake, they're overjoyed. And when they come to advise them again, those people, they say to them, but you did. And what about you? And how about you? And how often do we see this amongst the people? They reject the advice they're given. They reject this command or this prohibition simply because the one who gave it to them is like this or like that. Or they say, but he does and she does. Or they say, but why didn't he tell me in a nice way? And indeed, O servants of Allah, it is not for us to reject the commandment to the good or the forbidding from the evil from whoever it comes from. Yes, we understand that it's the best quality for one commander that he do what he commands and he stays away from what he forbids. Instead, the one who is not like this, then he has been threatened with the hellfire on the day of judgment. When they see him in the hell, and they will say, didn't you used to command us and forbid us? He'll say, I used to command you, but I used to not do it. And I used to forbid you, but I used to do it. But we need to understand, O servants of Allah, that it is not necessary for the one commanding or the one forbidding that he be qualified or he be described with every quality that he's commanding to or forbidding from. Indeed, it's necessary to command the good and forbid the evil regardless of his situation. He smokes a cigarette, but he tells you to pray on time. You can't reject his statement. His pants are below his ankle, but he tells you to follow the sunnah. You can't reject his statement. Because commanding the good and forbidding the evil is an obligation. Just like acting by the good and forbidding and not acting by the evil is an obligation. And deficiency in one does not remove the obligation of the second. And his statement, "Man ra'a minkum," whoever from amongst you sees, we understand from this a benefit that this is not something that's specific for the leaders or the rulers. Instead, he said, whoever sees. That means that it is upon all of us to command the good and forbid the evil. If we know and have knowledge, then we must do so. And it is not for us, nor for those we command or forbid to say, but you're not the Imaam. But you're not in charge. Who are you to tell me? You've been a Muslim for only 4 years. I've been a Muslim since I was born. Instead, whoever sees the evil from you, then let him change it. And all of that is based upon ability. If he has the ability to change it with his hand, then let him do so. If he has the ability to change it with his tongue, then let him do so. And if he does not, then he must at least disapprove of it and change it with his heart. And that is the least of Iman. And you should understand that this statement, then let him change it with his hand, does not mean fight. As has been the case from so many of those who misunderstand the religion. So they go and they try to go against the rulers. And they encourage the common people to speak against the rulers and to protest and boycott. And when they ask for proof, they say the Prophet said, change it with your hand. Indeed, this is not the case. Because the hadith, and this is a great benefit that we should pay attention to, he said, whoever sees evil, then let him change it. He didn't say let him change the one who does it. Whoever from amongst you sees evil, مَنْ رَأَى مُنْكَرًا فَلْيُغَيِّرْهُ بِيَدِهِ. Whoever sees evil, then let him change it with his hand. As far as the one who does it, then there are rules and regulations that apply to him. So this changing it with your hand does not mean fighting. Instead, if you see something bad, someone drinking alcohol, and you have the ability to pour it out, then pour it out. If you have the ability to speak against him, then speak against him. But this does not mean, as we see from those individuals in Egypt and Tunis and our brothers in Syria, may Allah assist them in the beginning of their affair, going against the rulers without having the ability to do so. Because these things never bring about good. And reality proves this all too often, that this going against the rulers only brings about more harm. And that's why we need to understand that when we command the good and forbid the evil, it's necessary that we consider the outcomes. So it's not for us to forbid an evil only to have it followed up by an evil greater than it. Instead, when we forbid the evil, it's necessary that we have knowledge, or more likely suspicion, that once we forbid it, nothing evil or worse than it will take its place. And if we forbid an evil with knowledge that only something worse than it will take its place, then we have indeed disobeyed Allah and His message. So it's necessary that we consider the outcomes, as our scholars all too often they talk about. And also, it's necessary that after considering the outcomes, that we consider the etiquette of how to command and forbid. And that entitles that we have compassion when we command and forbid each other. Yes, sometimes harshness is necessary. But, O servants of Allah, this is not the asl. This is not the foundation. All too often we see those who want to command and forbid, they take harshness as the foundation. But indeed, kindness is the foundation in commanding the good and forbidding the evil. For indeed, one who is better than all of us was commanded to be kind to one who is worse than anyone who will you command. So Allah Azza wa Jalla said to Musa wa akha, وَقُولَا لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيِّنْ لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرُ أَوْ يَخْشَى. And say to him a soft statement. I say to Fir'aun a kind and gentle statement, that he might remember and be guided. لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرُ أَوْ يَخْشَى. That he might remember and have fear. And this shows us and reminds us the purpose of our commanding to the good and forbidding the evil. That it's that the people receive guidance. It's not for them to follow me. It's not for me to show that I knew better than they did. It's only to remind them and to bring them back to true guidance and to bring them back to the taqwa of Allah. And for that reason, the one calling and the one being called should put this in front of his eyes. When his brother commands him, he should say that he's only commanding out of love for Allah and His Messenger and love for me. And when he's being commanded, when the one is commanding him, he should remember that I'm only telling him these things for the sake of Allah. Therefore, if there's any discrepancy or deficiency, they pardon it and excuse it because they know the underlying meaning was good. They know that they were only commanded or forbidden because they hate this evil for the sake of Allah, as we've all been commanded to do. They know they were only commanded or forbidden because they're hoping for the reward of Allah, as they've been commanded to carry out this obligation. And they're worried about His punishment upon them and their communities if they remain quiet. They know that they command the good and forbid the evil only out of kindness and mercy for mankind. And for that reason they say, Ahl Sunnah khayrun nasi bin nas wa arhamun nasi bin nas. The people of the Sunnah, the people who call to this good and forbid the evil, are the most kindest and merciful of people to people. Likewise, the Prophet, he said, you're the best people for people. You leave them in chains until they enter into paradise. Our goal, those servants, is only to bring the people back to the obedience of Allah, not to show our superiority over them, but to have us all upon that one call of Tawheed. And lastly, O servants of Allah, I command you to establish this commandment, to command the good and forbid the evil, and to carry it out as it should be carried out, and do not belittle yourself. Don't think that who am I to do so. Instead, if you have knowledge of the affair, then you must do so, even if you think the person won't listen to you. Because indeed, guidance is with Allah, and you don't know what benefits Allah might bring about by you. So this was the Prophet of Allah, Nuh, for 1,000 years except 50, calling his people to Tawheed, even though he was more sure that they wouldn't answer to him. But he continued. So like that, you must continue when you have knowledge, and don't belittle yourself, and don't leave it out of fear or cowardliness. Well, who am I to talk to him? Who am I to tell my boss to accept Islam? Who am I to tell my friend to leave off smoking? Who am I to tell my mother to wear the hijab? Indeed, this is something that is incumbent upon us all. And even if we don't think that they'll listen to us, we must still command. And this is the true meaning of Allah's statement. يا أيها الذين آمنوا عليكم أنفسكم لا يضركم من ضل إذا اهتديتم. You who have iman upon you as yourself, you will not be harmed by those who go astray if you have guidance. It doesn't mean only worry about yourself. Don't worry about anybody else. What it means is that once you do what you've been told, then you've done what you can do. And you will not be harmed if they answer to you or don't. And lastly, I say, keep in mind these things, this kindness and this justice and this knowledge of what you're calling to. Make sure that it's not based on desires. Whoever sees from amongst you evil, this evil that is agreed about, all too often we find us trying to disapprove of actions where the scholars allow disagreement therein. And we find in ourselves a type of hatred or dislike for those who go against us. This is not the inkar that we've been commanded with. Instead, if scholars disagree about something, and the person is mujtahidan or muqalladan, and he's following another opinion, then this is not the place of inkar. Yes, we can discuss it. Yes, we can advise about what we feel to be more accurate. But this does not mean that we disapprove of our brothers and we attack our brothers. And how often do we see it leading us to calling them innovators when they have a position different than ours? Instead, the inkar is on those things where there is no disagreement or the disagreement is weak, and this requires knowledge. And for that reason, Sufyan al-Thawri, he said, no one should command the good, لا يأمر بالمعروف أو ينهى عن المنكر إلا من كان فيه خصال ثلاث رفيق بما يأمر رفيق بما ينهى عادل بما يأمر عادل بما ينهى عالم بما يأمر عالم بما ينهى. He said no one commands the good or forbids the evil until he has three qualities. He is kind in what he commands and forbids. He is just. He's balanced. He's fair in what he commands and forbids. And he's knowledgeable about what he commands and forbids. So obtain this knowledge and this justice and this kindness and carry out your obligation and establish the salah.